topics. So what I will talk about today is the literature review, the gap in the literature, research questions, methodology, results, discussion, and the journey. So just to give you a little bit of the overview of my research. So people with disabilities are around 16% of the global population, according to the World Health Organization. And people with disabilities are disproportionately affected by natural disasters due to societal marginalization and exclusion from essential service, according to the UN. Their vulnerability is exacerbated by the lack of inclusive design in the built environment, which impedes their access to safety and resources during emergencies. And also, despite some countries having accessibility legislation, no compliant designs can turn from inconvenient to potentially fatal in natural disasters. So the gap in the literature was that the existing literature lacks a comprehensive exploration of how individuals with various types of disabilities are specifically impacted by non-inclusive built environments during different kinds of natural disasters. And also, there is a noticeable absence of research that combines personal narratives from people with disabilities with detailed analysis of how the built environment influences their experience before, during, and also after various natural disasters. Next one. So the research questions were, are persons with disabilities left behind in natural disasters? And to what extent is this due to the lack of inclusive design in the built environment? And if so, what are the implications for people with disabilities? So what are the impacts for people with disabilities? And to what extent are inclusivity and accessibility in the built environment considered for the crisis-affected disabled community? Next one. So my dissertation amplified the voices of people with disabilities and examined their experience during natural disasters, focusing on how the built environment affected their ability to navigate and also to respond to crisis. So the methodology was a qualitative approach using document analysis and narrative synthesis of publicly available electronic documents. Next one. So I think I will ask you to go to the next one, then come back to this one. So here I have testimonial from organization of people with disabilities. So this is what I did. I collected lots of testimonials from organizations of people with disabilities and also from people with disabilities. So this one was. They had people on the ground floor of the stadium, but a lot of the resources and the bathrooms were on the second floor, and there was a staircase. So people with physical disabilities who couldn't navigate the staircase, or at least navigate it safely, ended up having to use other jaspers to make it through the night because the one elevator that was available to them could only be used when there was someone available to escort them. So if you can, so in this testimonial, we can see that shelter impacted on the health of the person. So going back to the previous slide, I had the results separated in themes. So shelter was one of them. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 themes. So essential services disruption, transportation, shelter, supply services, affordability, infrastructure, wayfinding, and information. And in these themes, I divided how these themes impacted on people with disabilities. So the impacts on people with disabilities were on health, evacuation, economical issues, safety, access to service, work, death, social isolation, comfort, and well-being. Next one. So in the discussion, I give some recommendations for each theme. So, for example, during evacuation, it's crucial for individuals with disabilities to know their pickup locations, and temporary structures must be built without barriers to ensure they are accessible and inclusive for everyone. So I made one general recommendation for each theme. So in this case was effective sign pointing of pickup locations throughout neighborhoods is essential for guiding people with disabilities during evacuation. So, and additional legislation must be established to ensure that temporary constructions meet accessibility and inclusivity standards to prevent the creation of barriers. So I think that the journey was very challenging. I changed my job 3 times, so I started my dissertation in May. This is something that I don't recommend. For me, I think the most difficult part was definitely writing the methodology, because this is something that I was not used to. But it's also an opportunity to learn something new. So although I have been working with accessibility for people with disabilities for 5 years, this intersection of climate change, natural disasters, and people with disabilities was something that I didn't know much about. So it was definitely an opportunity to learn something new. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's a very nice topic, and it is nice to see, that you managed to extract some kind of very tangible outcomes and results, and all these ideas of suggestions. So I think an immediate question is how applicable and how these results can actually be used, because it looks like that there can be a direct use of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that for my experience working in this area, I think that the government has a crucial role in applying these results. But obviously the government needs to want to apply this. And this is something that I don't see in many, no, I cannot talk about many countries. I can only talk about my experience here in Brazil. I think that the government needs to have a more proactive role in these actions. But to be very honest, I don't know how to do it more actively,
Yeah. So do you think it's also there is some potential for quantifying or indicating kind of priorities? Because I mean, I think the analysis does not, that you performed does not indicate the priorities, but is this a possible extension that you may think of?
Yeah, I didn't think about priorities because I think that all of them are very important because they affected people with different disabilities in different ways. So yeah, I didn't think about these priorities as I think they are all very important.
That's a good point.